folks, it's been a moment since I've actually posted on the KDOG Movies episode. So, like I said, I had quite a busy time. I'm still kind of in the midst of it. Within this, I don't know when this video will get released, but I'm kind of in the middle of doing some stuff now, like an Easter play and so on and so forth. But this last weekend, and that would be, you know, it's the middle of March of 2025. So whenever you're watching this video, so in the middle of last week, actually, Disney drops on the world finally the live-action remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And we'll talk about that later. So, I thought we need to take a look at the original 1937 animated film. The one that started it all, again, from 1937. So, if you have Disney Plus, fire up Disney Plus. I know it's on there, definitely. So, or if you're like me, you have Blu-ray and the Ultra 4K Steelbook edition. So, yeah, fire it up and let's watch Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs from 1937. This is, of course, by Walt Disney Productions, originally released by RKO Pictures, but Disney owns everything that they ever distributed through them. So grab your popcorn, grab your snacks, get the kids around, fire up your Disney Plus, and let's take a look at Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, released in 1937. Let's keep in mind what this movie was. This was a landmark in filmmaking. Of course, cartoons have been around since the turn of the century, and cartoons are as old as the movies themselves. Now, Walt Disney took a huge gamble to make this movie because nobody had ever done a feature-length animated film. Never happened. So when the film was released in 1937, audiences showed up in droves to see a full-length animated feature from start to finish on the big screen. And it was a huge hit, huge monumental hit that that we still see to this day in movie-going. Animated films are now a staple in the movie-going experience. I mean, it's not uncommon for at least once a year to see an animated film. Thank you, Walt Disney, for bringing us Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs back then. Now, and this is how popular the film was. You know, there was no home video for years, and so they re-released it several times back into the theaters. And that went on clear up until 1994 when Snow White made its final theatrical appearance in 1994. Like spring of 1994. Because then she debuted on home video for the first time. And this was in 1994. where Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs debuted on home video And matter of fact, this is actually from that time. This is not a reissue or anything like that. This was purchased brand new in 1995. Or, 1994, excuse me. Because there's a big trailer on here where Roy E. Disney himself introduces the film and not only talks about some of the innovations that the company was working on, and plus The Lion King was getting ready to come out on video cassette, and which was the most recent animated film at that time, waiting for The Lion King to come out on home video, and it had a preview for the next animated film, which was going to be Pocahontas. So here we go. 1994 saw the home video debut of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Then fast forward to around 2001, 2002, and that's when the DVD release came out. Now, I don't have a copy of that. And then you fast forward until 2009, when she debuted onto Blu-ray high definition for the first time. And this has, I gotta say, this has some deluxe features in it. That's the reason why I kept this version, because when you get to the Ultra 4K version, it's some of the features are not there. So then you have the Ultra 4K HD Steelbook Edition, or the AKA the Signature collection, and this came out in 2023. Yeah, 2023 is when the Ultra 4K HD Blu-ray version came out, and of course it's been available on Disney Plus. So now let's talk about what the contents of the movie is. It's based on Grimm's fairy tales. So when Walt Disney adapted it, he had strong faith and wanted to tell a good versus evil story. Not to say he wanted to do something simple, but he wanted to do a simple fairy tale that depicted good versus evil. Okay? That's the heart of the story, folks. Not a creepy prince, not women empowerment, but a good versus evil. Let me explain that. Okay? So, we have the Princess Snow White, whom is so beautiful that her evil stepmother, the Queen, is jealous of her. And the mirror has been telling her all this time that you are the fairest, until Snow White became of age. Then the mirror no longer told her that, saying that it is a woman, it is a young maiden with hair black as ebony, skin white as snow. That is the fairest one of all. The Queen goes, Snow White. Now, you do have, and she is wishing for her prince to come. But that's not really the heart of the story, is it? It's good versus evil, okay? It's good versus evil. That's the heart of the story. So she meets her prince very, very early, and she's very shy of him. She, matter of fact, runs away from him. But then she hears him sing and realize, is this possibly my prince? And then you have the whole huntsman thing, taking her into the woods. She runs away, and then going to live with the 7 dwarfs. And she tells them about someday her prince will come and rescue her. Rescue her from the queen. Well, queen disguises herself, puts a spell on herself, makes her look old and ugly and just horrible. Takes an apple, poisons it with a curse, and gives it to Snow White as deception. Snow White eats it, she dies. 7 dwarfs drive the queen to her death. The prince shows up, kisses Snow White to come and saves her from death. Brings her back from death. Now, again, this is good versus evil. Let me explain the whole analogy here. Snow White represents us as human beings. She represents us as human beings, okay? We were originally supposed to be pure. The queen represents the devil, Satan, evil. Even using apple as the fruit of death. You eat this fruit, you're going to die. So going back to the old biblical story, folks. She eats the apple, she dies. Brings death. That's in the book, that's in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, folks. Adam and Eve ate of the fruit that they were forbidden to eat. What happened? That brought death. We need someone to save us. Here comes the prince. The prince saves her from death. Our prince being Christ. That's where that all now. See, it's more Christian allegorical than what you think. It's all about the good versus evil. The evil brings death. The good brings life. It's not empowerment. It's not whatever you think it is. Woke DEI. It's none of that stuff. It's good versus evil. It's all, and it, of course, wrapped up in a somewhat of a love story. She's waiting for her true love, yes. But at the heart of it, it is a good versus evil story. Not empowerment. Not whatever else you think it is. So, when Disney decided to do a live-action remake, well, we gotta feed this DEI, woke agenda stuff. And it was too weird for the prince to show up. You're missing the point altogether if you think that it's just a prince showing up because it was good versus evil. How she was tempted, she gave in, she ate of it, she died. She needed somebody to save her. And now, because of that political belief that it's all about empowerment, it's all, the prince was weird, stalking her and then kissing. No, 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 no. Now you have cost the Walt Disney Company $200 billion. They spent on that live action remake that no one is going to see. It's only made $43 million. Okay, $43 million. When the budget was $270 to $300 million. It ain't making that money back anytime soon. And see how box office works. You don't just want to make the money back. You want to make the money back plus double that or triple that. That's when it becomes profitable. You got a long ways to go before you even think about making the money back. And now you have Snow White currently on social media flipping off fans when it was her and Disney decided to do this, and you should have known better. What they should have done was cancel the project, possibly even fired her before it got out of hand, and recast and done it properly. And the dwarves, that's another story. Isn't there 7 dwarves that could have, 7 little people that could have played the dwarves? Did you have to use the full-grown people to stand in for CGI dwarves? Couldn't you have hired what in the world is Warwick Davis or the former WWE superstar Hornswoggle doing? Come on, they're willing to work. They would have been glad to step into the dwarves spots. But that's another issue. I liked what I'm basically reiterating and what standing in agreement with what Pastor Greg Laurie said, which is it's a story about good versus evil. He's like me, and I think we share his common fandom in Disney in that way, but he said this is what I told you. It is a story that is about good versus evil. That ultimately, evil is going to die, and dies a horrible death, and that the good will win, and that we do need someone to save us. See, it's strong. Not right, I don't want to say right wing or left wing, but it's strong Judeo-Christian allegorical story. The prince represented the good, the good and the savior that we need as human beings to redeem us. That's what that's all about. It's not about empowerment or taking over a kingdom. That was just the backdrop. It's about good versus evil. And you think about some of the other stories that Disney has told, it's good versus evil. And look what they've Pinocchio was a really bad one. The the one that they remade, and I like Robert Zemeckis. I like his movies. That was not good. There was woke DEI in that. At the tail end, they say he chose to live as a real boy. No. No, 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 no. That's woke DEI garbage. There's a reason why we're signing bills into laws to stop this madness. This is just, yeah. There's reasons why we're doing the things we're doing now. I mean, it's just it's crazy times that we're in right now. And you think, like I said, go back and look at some of the other films that Disney made, and think about how they were all, at one point or another, were very much good versus evil. Another one would be Sleeping Beauty. You know, it's yes, Sleeping Beauty. That's definitely where you have the prince fighting the devil. But they've already remade that one, telling it from the devil's point of view. Maleficent. So, yeah, I'm just going to leave that there and let you kind of sit on that one about Snow White. So, if you're going to watch Snow White, watch the original 1937 film. Avoid going to the theater to see this new one. And, of course, a lot of people are. Like I said, it's only made around $43 million. And I just checked. I just read a news report, said it's had a 70% drop off from that. So look at all the empty seats that's going to see your movie. That's what I'm going to say. So on to the next feature. Okay, here we are back in for the next feature. And I thought, since we talked about the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and I went on a little rant about Rachel Ziegler and political correctness, but I think this time, this next feature, I think that we talk about a film that went down probably just as bad, and it's still held as the biggest box office bomb of all time. I don't think I've talked very much about this film. I think I've mentioned it briefly, but I want to talk about it after I come back with the next segment, because first thing is we have to watch the film. Then I come back. Now, I will forewarn you, this is a long movie. This is like a 3-hour and 39-minute long movie. Particularly this cut of the movie. And I'll get into that after we talk about the film. So what am I talking about? I am talking about Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate. Now, why is this film the biggest box office bomb of all time, and why do I think it deserves to be talked about amongst the whole Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs thing and what it's doing with Disney? Well, because very similar, this is an example of how one person can bring down an entire dynasty. And I'll go into the whole history of the thing. So, and I'll try to keep it under, eternity or whatever, but because it's an interesting story, and it's been, yeah, we'll just get into it later. So, this film is from 1980. It's available on the Criterion Collection. Matter of fact, that's how I have a copy of it. Criterion has been generous in restoring the picture and distributing it to at least Blu-ray. I'm not quite sure if there's a 4K release. There may be. But yeah. From 1980, released by United Artists originally, it is Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate. Okay, so that was Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate. From 1980 was when that version was particularly released. And then it was re-released back in, let's see, whenever this Blu-ray came out, 2012. Criterion was generous enough to allow Cimino's true vision of the film to be re-released theatrically, but it was only a limited run where they completely restored the film to his intent. This film has gone on history as being the biggest box office disaster of all time. I think now, as the film overall, it is a slow movie. It is very, very slow paced. And I like westerns, but definitely in a western, I would like things to be a bit more fast-paced. And this film is just definitely, it's a slow-paced movie. And supposedly, okay, we really need to get into this because I'm going to do my best to give you kind of an abbreviated version of what happened. Now, if you can find this, I don't know if it's available. I'm sure it's available online through Amazon, but I was able to find it at a thrift bookstore, a used bookstore, and it is Stephen Bach's Final Cut, Dreams and Disaster in the Making of Heaven's Gate. Yeah, so this is how bad things were for this film. And this just shows that one film under a few people can take down not only a studio, as well as change the course of filmmaking altogether. This was the film that ended the 70s filmmaking. Period. Because what had happened, that there was this little director by the name of Michael Cimino, and he had made several films throughout the 70s. He was the screenplay writer on one of the Dirty Harry movies. So, and he had developed a reputation of being a great filmmaker. And the films that he made Thunderbolt and Lightfoot with Clint Eastwood. And his magnum opus was in 1979 with The Deer Hunter with Robert De Niro. Now that was under Universal Pictures. And what had happened was there was enough buzz that generated around Cimino that anybody was willing to give him the money and greenlight his next movie. So, United Artists, some executives at United Artists they were desperate to put a film into the Academy Awards. And so they see a rough cut of The Deer Hunter. see that it's this director named Michael Cimino, who had, like I said, Thunderbolt and Lightfoot was under United Artists. But a little side note there, that was a Clint Eastwood movie, and Clint Eastwood was in charge. Even though Cimino directed the film, Eastwood was the producer and financier of the film, and so he had control. He had power and control to say, okay, let's do this, or let's not do this. Okay, so he had control. Cimino was one of those personalities that it was his vision, and I don't care what you got to say. If you are, that's and this is of course if you gave him that power. And United Artists at the time was one of the biggest studios, well, the biggest film companies in Hollywood. A lot of filmmakers loved to go through United Artists because they did not sit and watch dailies with you. They did not necessarily have a massive control over. They didn't dictate over the filmmaking process. They felt it was a good movie. It was like, okay, you negotiated the deal. We're going to honor that. Whatever, get it out there. And originally, and at the time, and this was New Hollywood. Okay, so the old movie moguls were gone. A little background on United Artists. United Artists was started by Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, Charlie Chaplin, and D.W. Griffith. They were tired of working for the studio system, which was all. They just got tired of their visions dictated, and this is even in the silent era that those people came forward and formed United Artists. So that way they could make their own movies and so on and so forth. And it was popular enough and it was successful enough that it continued clear up until the 1970s. You still see the name United Artists today, but it's under MGM. That is because in 1981, MGM purchased United Artists for an unprecedented amount because of this film. And MGM ran it, then changed their name to MGM UA Communications. So they bought the company and still released films under United Artists, but it was a totally different company. It was not the same United Artists as what was happening with Heaven's Gate. Less corporate. It was corporate because it was, I take that back, but the executives didn't, like I said, they didn't hove over the directors or whatever, but until Heaven's Gate. And at the time, previous to Heaven's Gate being greenlit, the former executives, they were tired of dealing with the parent company, which was Transamerica. Transamerica is still around today. And Transamerica is an insurance company. But at the time, this was New Hollywood, and the corporate America had taken over the Hollywood studios. The movie moguls were gone. So obviously Charlie Chaplin, he lost say so in United Artists, and it was sold to Transamerica, the insurance company. And Paramount was by Gulf and Western. Warner Brothers was bought by a billionaire by the name of Kinney, and then turned around, and then of course, it was just corporates. The corporations came in and bought the studios, and they had struggled in the 60s and the 70s. They were looking for new talented directors to bring them back to the fold, and so that's what happened in the 1970s. And so you got all these films, all these great directors, people like Peter Bogdanovich, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Cimino, uh, William Friedkin, just to go on and on and on about all those directors that came out of the 70s. Then Cimino wants to make Heaven's Gate, and United Artists agrees to greenlight it. And when he tells them the story that he wants to make, they say, what do you want to make? He said, I want to make the story about the Johnson County War. This is loosely based on a true story. The Johnson County War was dealing with, they had some, of course this was a time, the United States is built on immigration. Okay? And so this was Germans and Slovakians and people coming from Europe, essentially, wanting to settle in the United States. But this turned violent when the powers that be, the government, accused these people of stealing cattle. And it turned out to be an all-out war. And so Cimino wanted to tell this story. And they start talking, well, how much do you think that you could bring this movie in, like budget-wise? Oh, it's going to cost $8 million. Okay? It's going to cost $8 million. Right off the bat, that should be a red flag for you because he just gave them a number. That's all he did. Now, they didn't see, okay, $8 million, we'll agree with that. And the casting of the picture, he said, and Cimino had already made his mind up of who he wanted in the picture. He wanted Chris Christopherson, singer, songwriter, actor Chris Christopherson, and Christopher Walken. And then when it comes time to cast the female, the love interest, well, it's to be, he said, it's to be this French actress by the name of Isabelle Huppert. And this is where UA and Cimino began to clash. This is the first time they clashed. Was the casting of Isabelle Huppert, who's beautiful in the film. She was a lovely actress. She's still alive, so don't think that she's deceased. But she's a French actress, and but she does have a thick French accent. Does speak English, but and speaks it beautifully, but very, very broken. Very, very thick French accent. And they were not happy about that. Because they said, Cimino said, well, she can work with the dialect coach and so on and so forth. And they're like, yeah, she could, but I don't think it's still going to be good enough for an American audience to understand her. And he fought and fought and fought, and how he won out was the UA International team. They said, oh, she's great in France. We have no problem with Isabelle Huppert. She'd be great. So that's how Cimino got Isabelle Huppert cast. And that's where the first time they clashed. Then they start going into production. The building of sets. And they start shooting. Within the first week of shooting, Cimino goes behind schedule 5 days. So what was he shooting? Well, as it turns out, he was being the artist. He was shot on location. And it was the weather just being outrageous. And so then the budget started to go up through the roof. And United Artists was not happy. They're watching their company just hemorrhaging out money to the location shoot of Heaven's Gate. And this caused not only friction amongst the UA executives, but also other filmmakers that wanted to have their films made at United Artists, because United Artists couldn't give those films money because it was all going to Heaven's Gate. And not only that, there was a number of problems. Not only was Cimino taking his time, but also there was some bad press on the location. There was a freelance writer by the name of Les Gapay that had snuck his way onto the set. Now, he snuck in by being hired as an extra in the film. They were hiring extras because Cimino was very much of the depiction of, I'm not going, nobody's allowed on, no press is allowed on set, it's closed, even though we're on location, but hey, we need extras. And nobody bothered to check, or someone used a fake identification to sneak in, and Les Gapay got his story because he was hearing what was going on. He was overhearing a mad studio, animals possibly getting hurt on set, cast and crew not being fed and or paid on time. So you had that going on. And the budget just kept going up and up and up. The budget for the film is estimated between 45 and 55 million dollars what they spent, and this was in 1979, 1980. Now, that's nothing compared to what a film costs today. Let me look up here. We'll see if I can't find what the total budget here was. Okay. Okay, so I was not too far off. The budget for the film ended up being $44 million. The box office intake was $3.5 million. Where are we seeing that today? Snow White. But So far, Disney hasn't gone under collapse, though. They are taking a hit. So far, what I've heard is that they've canceled a future project. They've Rachel Zegler has been fired from Disney altogether, and they've canceled an upcoming project, which I believe was Tangled. They were going to do Tangled live action. So far, that's been canceled. But anyway, this was so bad that it forced Transamerica to put United Artists up for sale. And eventually that's what happened. MGM stepped in and bought UA for, I forget how many millions of dollars, but they bought United Artists for several $million at the time, but they kept the brand going, for the longest time, and so, yeah, if you can find this book, Final Cut, Dreams and Disaster in the Making of Heaven's Gate by Stephen Bach. Stephen Bach was the main, he was United Artists head of production. Yeah, so he recalls everything in this book, and there's even a documentary on YouTube. You can find it. It was on a channel called Trio, I believe. That was a failed channel, but they did a whole documentary. Thankfully, someone has bootlegged it and put it up on YouTube. Just look up Final Cut Heaven's Gate, and you can watch the full documentary. It's narrated by Willem Dafoe, who is rumored to be an extra in Heaven's Gate. It has interviews with Chris Christopherson, Brad Dourif, Jeff Bridges, who were the stars of the film. No Christopher, but it also has Stephen Bach, and several of the key players who were executives at United Artists at the time, or involved with the production of some sort. But the key lesson here is, well, let me wrap this up. What happened eventually? Obviously MGM bought United Artists again, but also not only did it end the studio, they had a great legacy behind it, because by that time United Artists was a powerhouse. They were a powerhouse, and they had the James Bond movies, they had the Rocky movies, they had so many great films. But it all came crashing down over one film, over a director's passion project that got out of control. And that's why I always believe that the filmmakers need to be kept in check and the studio needs to be kept in check. Because if you were to ask me who's at blame here, I blame Michael Cimino, and I blame everybody who was working for United Artists. I blame both sides, because nobody said stop. They waited until near the end of production to put the hammer down on Cimino and speed up production. So that was just one of the things, is that he was taking his time making this film. Plus, you shoot on location, the weather is going to be all over the place. And when the film came out, it was trashed by both the audiences and the critics. The critics were all like they were already writing pieces about it while the film was in production. But then when the reviews actually did come out after the final product, the worst review came from Vincent Canby. Vincent Canby, who's one of the most legendary film critics of the the writing film critics who wrote for newspapers and magazines. I forget, I can't remember who he wrote for. I think it was the I think it was the Times. But anyway, he wrote the most damaging review to Heaven's Gate, and everybody bought it. And they said, yes, we agree with you, Vincent Canby. And here, I'll sum it up what Vincent Canby said. He said that Heaven's Gate, Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate, was like a 3-hour-long tour of somebody's living room. That's harsh. You're sitting in my living room right now, and even I'm not taking you a 3-hour tour of it. Maybe not even 15 minutes. Or as long as this video is. But that was, and everybody believed it. Everybody went in with that mindset that went to see the film. And I just, personally, I think it was, one, it was a story I don't think people were interested in hearing. But two, people just went a little overboard. You had a director went overkill with the spending, and you had a naive studio that, at the time, who had changed executives because the original executives were fed up with the corporate division. I don't want to say corporate America, but corporate division. So they left and formed their own company, which also failed, Orion. And the interesting thing, that's also part of MGM as well. So, how funny things work. It was, yeah, when Arthur Krim, who was the original head of United Artists, left, took 2 other executives with him, and they formed Orion Pictures, which worked throughout most of the 80s, but there was a lot of junk that they produced and it flopped. Mac and Me, anybody? But yeah, if you can find Final Cut on Heaven's Gate on YouTube, just watch it and it'll give you a brief summary. Or find this book, again, by Stephen Bach, who recalls everything that happened while the making of the film. So it's this is why it's called show business. It's not just show and it's not just business. There has to be checks and balances on both ends, and in both the case of Heaven's Gate and the new Snow White from Disney, it's a no one was put in check. You had in Snow White, you have a star that's bouncing off her political views, and you have the corporate end who has the same beliefs, but they realize, hey, we got to make money at this, and the audience is going, we don't want that. But in the case of Heaven's Gate, it was a director had a passion project and he's going to do whatever he wants with it, and you had a studio that essentially signed a blank check And the audience said, we don't want to see this. This looks boring. And the director's cut of this, it's 3 hours and 39 minutes. And it's a slow burn of a movie. Now, do I think Heaven's Gate is a bad movie? I have seen worse movies than Heaven's Gate. Okay, I've seen worse. But is this a movie? I occasionally come back to it because the final depiction of the cinematography in this version, the Criterion version, is breathtaking. It's amazing. And the photography that came from this. Now, I need to kind of add something here about the cinematography, because the version that was released to theaters was released under a sepia tone filter. So when people saw, the people that did go see Heaven's Gate, they saw this brownish image, and it made it very difficult to see a lot of it. And so when you get into that final scene of the actual battle, the dust that's being kicked up, you cannot see diddly squat. But in this version, Criterion was able to find some elements, which was the yellow, the cyan, and magenta, 3 strips which make color. They were able to find those records and extract a new print, and with proper color correction, and what comes out is this bright green, colorful film, not a dry brown and dusty looking film. And and Criterion puts that on the second disc. They show a unrestored and restored version, and it's like you're going from night and day. It's crazy, but that's the way they wanted it, and that's the way United Artists wanted to release it. But it wasn't Cimino's vision by that point. And there's a reason why that book is called Final Cut, because it was the power struggle to achieve or maintain Michael Cimino's cut, his final cut, which was a big thing which is a big thing. It still is, but very few directors get Final Cut now. Thank you, Heaven's Gate, because of that. It ended Final Cut. It ended the directors getting to make the movies that they wanted to make, and it ended the studio. So it ended, and it ended a lot of things that happened in Hollywood. But enough of that. Let's move on to the next feature. Okay. So here we are again on the next film. This is a brand new one for me. This played in the theaters back in the fall, and it looked interesting to me, even though it just looked interesting to me. But it seems like this is probably a woke movie. So we're going to take a look at a film from last fall, just now coming out to Ultra 4K and Blu-ray. And unfortunately, when I went last night to purchase this, I know I could do the streaming thing, but I prefer a disc. Sorry, but I do. And I wanted a Ultra 4K HD version of it. So I go down to my nearest Walmart. They have the film, on DVD only. Why are we still I don't know, folks. This is what's frustrating about physical media, is that I appreciate the fact that they still manufactured a physical copy for a film, but now let's upgrade just a little bit. You know, at least they could have, at minimum, they could have put a Blu-ray disc. I had to go through Amazon, which luckily delivered within 24 hours, and it is the film Companion. Who is the director of this? Drew Hancock, and who's the starring Sophie Thatcher, Jack Quaid, Lucas Cage. What I've seen in the trailer, definitely there's some mixed messaging going on with the trailer, and even in the marketing of this, because they're obviously, it's a thriller, scary movie, but they're marketing towards the Nicholas Sparks Notebook people, and it's definitely not that, because it's a I guess it's a hard rated R, but they say on the back in the description, New Line Cinema, the studio that brought you The Notebook and the unhinged creators of Barbarian. Okay, they kind of balance the unhinged. Like, okay, come on. Oh boy. So I'm gonna check this out, and what I can tell from the trailer, it gives me kind of a mixed bag of like the Stepford Wives meets Child's Play meets Don't Worry Darling type of thing. So obviously it's about an AI. It's a movie about artificial intelligence or a robot. Yeah, so kind of want to check this out. So let's get your drinks and your popcorn. I don't know how gory this is, but it says it's rated R, strong violence, sexual content, and language throughout. So I have no idea what I'm in for, but I popped a bag of AMC Theaters cinnamon butter popcorn. It's not exactly too sweet, but some smells good. You smell the cinnamon in it. So, and I got my Panda Express leftover Diet Coke. So, let's roll the film, and I'll give you my thoughts about it afterwards. Okay, so Companion. This was a DEI's dream. This was DEI's dream movie. Think about that. Oh boy. This definitely had the check mark boxes of DEI, because what was it saying? It was saying that guys like me are greedy pigs, and that we are abusive, we want money and power. Not true. That's the message of this film. Is that because Jack Quaid, the son of Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid, in this film, he is this young guy, and we have, I've already forgotten her name, Sophie Thatcher. Film opens up in a homage to the Stepford Wives. In the film, and if you've seen the Stepford Wives, particularly the 2004 version of the Stepford Wives, it opens up with Iris, Sophie Thatcher's character, walking through the grocery store. And it's filmed very, very similar to the way Frank Oz filmed the robots in his remake of the Stepford Wives. But doesn't entirely... You already know from the... They already gave it away from the trailer and the poster that Iris is a robot. And they gave away the fact that it is definitely AI gone wrong, but but you don't know the entire function of what she's going to do. You just saw like clips in the trailer of her finding the app that controls her, and she takes the intelligence and cranks it all the way to 100%, and of course she can change. It also it just seems like also they wanted to play around with the special effects in terms of what a robot will do. Steven Spielberg probably made, in my opinion, the best depiction of an AI robot with love and affection with AI back in 2001. And he even played around a little bit of what the robot can do, because there's a scene in that film where Haley Joel Osment's David picks up the phone and he puts his fingers out at the receiver and one at the microphone, and kind of goes like this, and you hear him speaking as whoever is on the telephone. So it sounds like a woman, and then it changes to a man's voice. And so in this case, she can change her voice to sound just like Jack Quaid, Josh. And there's also 3 other characters that's in here. You have a character by the name of Patrick and Eli. You have characters Patrick and Eli. And this is where it turns into the DEI checkboxes, because Eli is human, Patrick is a robot, and Patrick is Eli's companion robot. It's not just sex bots. They use them for that, but also but it's there to be their companion. It's to fill in the void of the human counterpart. Now, what they didn't tell you is what led to the whole, because when you see Iris come back you see in the trailer Iris coming back into the house, and she's covered in blood, and so she's killed somebody, thus making the AI go wrong. So as it turns out, that there is a Russian mob hitman um, who's dealt with human trafficking and drug cartel, and so they revealed that why would this man be murdered? And it's also revealed that they reprogrammed Iris to kill this guy because they're sitting on like several he's sitting on like several $1,000,000. Now I need to back up a little bit, that these robots, again, are companion robots, but they work very, very similar to Alexa. And so they work very, very similar to Alexa. So like they say, so when Jack Quaid gives a command to Iris, he says her name, Iris, go to sleep, if he wants her to stop. If she's getting too crazy, he says, Iris, stop. Or Iris, go to sleep. You know, shuts down, like her eyes go to this pure white. She shuts down. And it also plays that with the fact that, you know, they establish why Iris has these memories about their first date when they first met, as well as the other couple, whatever you want to call them, but they have a first memory. A memory of their first date, and so on and so forth. So they have to explain, and this is so dumb. They had to explain to the robot that she is a robot, and explain that she has the memories are all programming. It's all they have a memory that's pre-programmed into the robot. All it needs is a face to attach to that memory, and it puts that person's face in that memory. But again, this was it was very much a DEI checkbox thing, that a straight man is the bad guy, full of greed, wants greed and power and to be dominant. And then you had to have gay characters. You had to have the woman being empowered. You had to have, oh gosh, it was just, this was a DEI woke agenda dream. And it's no wonder it was in the theaters very briefly and gone. It pretty much was in the theaters for a few weeks and then went straight to digital, but took longer for it to come out on disc. But I want to establish something right here, because I could relate to the Josh character. But here's the thing. I do get angry. I do want to get ahead in life, but I do not plot to murder anybody, nor do I think that anybody should be enslaved. See, a marriage and having companionship in male to female should not be enslavement, or do I wish that that person should be a robot emotionally? Because it could be there's like a little hidden message there about that he could abuse her at any given will, and because it's a robot. But the message is that what they think is the nuclear relationship should be, the woman is to be a robot. No, not at all. And so I don't wish that on anybody. If you are in an abusive relationship, you need to get out. I will admit, I'm not an easy person to get along with. I can be tough to get along with. But I am not that person that what was depicted by Jack Quaid as Josh, because he truly is the villain of the story. It's kind of like a modern day take of Frankenstein. You know, this is a monster that he created, but the monster is actually the human as depicted in this film. But it is so messed up. And it was just checkboxing. It was placing the check marks, you know, next to, okay, we have women empowerment, we have the gay couple, we have this, we have that. And the person that's a straight person is to be declared bad. Really? No wonder this is bad. It's not good. And Warner Brothers, when they marketed this, they said it's from the studio that brought you The Notebook. Well, The Notebook was a genuine love story, boy meets girl, and they marry and eventually have a family by the end of the film. Even though it's not easy, they have their problems, but they have a family, and how they grow old together and pass away. And but they really wanted to twist that up and, oh, let's put in the DEI stuff and let's show that traditional relationships are bad. That the real pig is a straight man. I had problems big time with this movie. It was just like, okay, you know what's going to happen. Also very predictable too. Very predictable. Like, this was, and I just watched a little bit of the bonus content. They said it was AI horror. And you know, we are living in the AI age where machines are used to imitate real life. It can even get you into trouble. That's the really scary part, is that we are we are using AI to mimic and or imitate real life, and we could show depictions of horrible things to people, but they say it's not real. So why are we even entertaining these thoughts of people doing such bad things? It's a sick world we live in, and it's getting sicker. And I think this is it's not a cautionary tale or by any stretch, but it just shows, as the movies, where we're headed, because the DEI checkboxing, and just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should. So that was companion. Gosh, can't even say it, but it's. There was little homages to the Stepford Wives, obviously with the opening shot in the grocery store. But it seemed like that was paying more homage to the 2004 remake with Nicole Kidman, because it's, well, and I guess you could say that the 1970s version had that too. So, but the original 1970s Stepford Wives was a straight up horror film for the time, and it was more political motivated. It was more political motivated because it was the feminist movement. It was the feminist movement of the 70s, and so that's, women's lib and all that stuff was coming about, and so and of course it was based on a book. I forget the author of the. Now that's the Stepford Wives, but that was based on a book by the same author who wrote Rosemary's Baby, and so it was very much the nightmare of these men turning their wives into trophy wives by turning them into robots and or living dolls. And so this film tries to pay homage to that, and but kicks it up to the notch where the doll or the robot gets vengeance. And it's just wrong, and I can't recommend it. I'm not going to recommend it for anybody. It's a woke DEI checkbox movie. It's just a horrible film. That's what I'm going to say about it. Because, like I said, I found myself kind of relating to the Josh character. However, I'm not a murderer. I don't want my female companion to be enslaved. I'm not doing the thinking or deciding for her. See, I believe in the Bible, when that says that women are to submit to their husbands, that doesn't mean slavery. The world thinks it's slavery. It's not slavery. because what they want to pick apart that one little section that says wives are to submit to their husbands, but they don't want to read a little bit further where it says husbands, listen to your wives. Listening is a form of obedience, folks. So, I think I'm just going to leave it at that and just wrap it up because I don't know what else to say. I've been ranting and raving all about this, going on a tangent about this movie, and it's just, it's a DEI checkbox movie, and it's woke agenda. This is the stuff we need to get rid of. Shouldn't even be thought of being made. Well, that pretty much concludes this video. I was going to do another film, but the thing of it is, I was just ranting and raving about this particular video's movies, and you know, the Snow White remake, and this was a week of like what I would call like a duds week, you know, where there was nothing but duds. So the only movie that we really watched that had somewhat a merit, it's actually a very well made movie. However, it was the politics behind it and what was going on behind the scenes that kind of ruined the whole film. That being Heaven's Gate. So, yeah, so stay tuned. I'll have another one coming up sometime soon. So, and we'll have more films and we'll have more discussions. So, hopefully you do come back and this one didn't turn you off, because it was just some not pleasant movies. I guess not the best movies, you know. But Snow White was the original 1937 Snow White. We talked about that, but I went on to the whole ranting and raving about Rachel Ziegler and the new Disney the live action version. But so I guess it's not quite duds, but you know, the whole I just refuse to go see the new one. And some of you have. I've checked out like some, you know, I've seen some of my friends who I'm friends with on Facebook. They've gone to see it. So, but it's a little too late, you know. So, with that, I'm gonna say, from me to you, see you later.